I journeyed 8 hours behind the wheel, my hands tightening with each passing mile, my heart caught between anticipation and unease. I'm Lena, and this wasn't merely a drive. It was a quiet promise etched across years and emotional distances I could never fully grasp. It had been over a year since I last saw my father, but today I was determined to change that. The air carried the scent of crisp pine and road dust. I didn't pause for coffee. I just needed to arrive. Each mile brought me closer, as if I were unraveling pieces of my own story. I pictured his expression when I appeared at his door. "Surprise, Dad," I'd say. "Your mortgage, $72,000, it's gone. Paid off." All because I wanted him to feel valued, supported, loved. For nearly a year, I juggled 2 jobs and tapped into savings meant for my freelance design venture. I never told him. He wouldn't have accepted it if I had, not from me. But this wasn't about his pride. It was about proving I was still here, still reaching out. The dashboard clock glowed just past 5 p.m. as I exited the highway into the neighborhood of my childhood. Familiar trees, familiar sidewalks, yet the warmth remained foreign. I parked a block away to keep my arrival quiet. In the rearview mirror, I checked my reflection, puffy eyes from sleeplessness, but a fragile smile held firm. From the glove box, I retrieved the envelope with the mortgage release papers, tied with a small ribbon like a present. My hand shook. This wasn't just about Thanksgiving. It was about showing up, not just for dinner, but for him, for us. As I climbed the front steps, I murmured, "Let this be a good day." I pressed the doorbell, unaware that within the next minute, the man I loved most would stare into my eyes and call the police. When the officer asked me to step off the porch that night, I wasn't shocked. Deep down, I'd always braced for this rejection. That house, his house, never felt like home. I grew up in its shadow, never its embrace. From my earliest memories, I was either too much or not enough, too emotional, not compliant enough, too driven, not subdued like my brother, Jacob. In my father's eyes, Jacob could do no wrong. If he did school, it was boys will be boys. If I earned an A-, it was, why not an A+? The disparity wasn't subtle, it was crushing. Birthdays, holidays, even simple dinners, Jacob got the best chair, the bigger portion, the final say. I learned to stay quiet, to make myself small. Silence became safer than seeking love. Still, I tried. I joined the fan club of his favorite sports team just to share a conversation. I mowed the lawn despite my asthma. I brought home trophies and certificates, hoping one might earn a spot on the fridge. He never noticed. Yet each time he passed by without a glance, I tried again. Isn't that what daughters do? We keep reaching, even when the hands don't reach back. After Mom died, the coldness deepened. The faint warmth she brought to the house faded. Dad grew distant. Jacob moved out but still got daily calls, Sunday dinners, inside jokes. I got check-ins only when bills needed paying or favors were required. Yet I never stopped loving him. That night, standing outside the house I spent my childhood trying to belong in, I realized I'd driven 8 hours chasing a moment I'd sought for 28 years. I didn't come for thanks. I came to feel like I mattered. Instead, I was told to leave. Pulling into the driveway, the house looked unchanged, gray siding, chipped porch paint, the crooked mailbox I offered to fix at 17. He dismissed me saying, "It's fine as is," like everything else in our family, barely holding together. I sat in the car, clutching the folder with the bank letter declaring his $72,000 mortgage, paid in full, by me. I imagined him opening the door, stunned, maybe tearful. A hug, a thank you, perhaps even, "I'm proud of you." I knocked, heart pounding. He opened the door, his face falling. No warmth, no surprise, just irritation. "What are you doing here, Lena?" "I came to surprise you for Thanksgiving," I said, forcing a smile, holding out the folder like an olive branch. "Dad, I paid off your mortgage. The house, it's yours, free and clear." He didn't glance at the papers. "Lena," he said, stepping back as if I were a threat, "you don't get to show up and play family just because you threw money at me." My throat tightened. "It's not about money. It's about making things right." He shook his head. "You're always trying to prove something. It's tiring. I glanced past him, hoping Jacob might appear, might intervene. The house was silent. Dad, please. He cut me off, pulling out his phone. You need to leave. Wait, what are you? I'm calling the police, he said, dialing. Yeah, I have someone trespassing. I need them removed. Then, like a blade, his final words, surprises are for people who belong here. She doesn't. I didn't cry then. I stepped back down the porch, moving mechanically. Minutes later, headlights appeared. The officer asked questions I barely heard. I handed him the folder. He read it, looked at me, then at the house. He's your father, he asked softly. I nodded. You paid off his mortgage? Another nod. He sighed. He doesn't want you here. I'm sorry. I wasn't angry, just hollow. I got in my car, said nothing, and drove away from the house that never welcomed me. That night, in the silence of my apartment, I pressed a single button and set something in motion they never saw coming. The drive home was darker than the journey. There, stripped of the hope I'd carried. No music, no calls, just mile after mile. Hands gripping the wheel, eyes holding back tears. It wasn't just the rejection, it was its finality. That house wasn't just where my father lived, it was where I clung to the illusion of a place to return to. I remembered Thanksgivings from my youth, offering to set the table only for my stepmother to hand the task to Jacob. They'd carve out his favorite dish, but never mine. At 13, I baked a pumpkin pie from scratch, hoping to contribute. It sat untouched, ignored, while they praised Jacob for reheating mashed potatoes. I thought I hadn't done enough, so I kept trying. I stayed in school, earned scholarships, worked 3 jobs through college. I never asked Dad for a cent. Not for books, not when I skipped meals to pay rent. Yet I sent cards, birthday texts, messages that went unanswered. Even after moving states, building a career, buying my own place, I told myself one day I'd be enough for him to say, I'm glad you're mine. Driving through the silence, I knew I'd never truly been part of that family. They didn't forget me. They chose to exclude me. I was a reminder of a failed marriage, a daughter who didn't fit their mold. I thought paying off the mortgage would earn me a place at their table, but it only showed I'd succeeded without them. My existence didn't make him proud. It made him uneasy. Back home, I stood in my dark kitchen, staring at the folder like it was poison. The silence screamed what I needed to hear. The begging was done. The proving was over. He'd made his choice, and now I'd make mine. That night, I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because I was done letting them shrink me. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I knew the next time they saw my name, it wouldn't be in a text. It would be on letterhead, on documents, on consequences. I was no longer the outsider. I was the storm they didn't see coming. In my apartment, the quiet wasn't empty. It was the hush before a shift. I kicked off my shoes, dropped my keys, and sat at my laptop. The screen's glow lit my eyes, but my heart burned brighter. I hovered over one button, Launch Company Site. That was the moment I'd hinted at when I left my father's driveway in silence. I clicked, and with that, Hollow Oak Properties was live. Not a dream, but my reality. I'd built it quietly for months, late nights, endless weekends, countless coffee cups, funded by my savings and a secret inheritance my father never knew about. My grandfather's will left me money, bypassing Dad entirely. His letter read, Lena, I see your strength, your grace. This is your seed. Grow something undeniable. I'd read it with trembling hands, stunned by the financial documents meant for me. I didn't squander it. Every cent fueled a real estate company with heart, one that built homes for people like me, seeking belonging. I partnered with architects, designers, and former foster kids who'd risen above. Every piece of my startup told a story. The first listings? In the neighborhood my father prided himself on owning. Poetic, isn't it? As the site went live, I watched the analytics climb. Clicks, then more. My attorney texted, press release ready for Monday. I replied, send. This wasn't revenge. It was reclaiming the power I'd begged others to grant me. I leaned back, letting tears fall, not from pain, but from release, like exhaling after years of holding my breath. They thought they'd locked me out. They didn't know I'd built my own door. And that night, I didn't need an invitation, I was already home. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. A Tuesday afternoon brought a message from my legal team. Title confirmed. Property lien officially in your name. I stared at the words, letting them sink in. I'd known it was coming, part of a quiet plan I'd set in motion months ago, but seeing it written felt different. My father's house, the one where I stood with a gift of peace on Thanksgiving, only to have the police called, was now entangled in debt, and I held the reins. Here's how it unfolded. After launching Hollow Oak Properties, my team grew quickly. We acquired distressed properties and bundled liens through discreet deals, handled by lawyers and finance experts who navigated loopholes like scripture. One file stopped me cold, a heavily mortgaged house on Oak Ridge Lane, my father's address. I checked it repeatedly, certain it was a mistake. But there it was, 3 liens from unpaid taxes, a contractor dispute, and shady refinancing he hadn't understood. The debt was split across 2 firms, both partly owned by me. This wasn't a scheme I'd plotted, it found me. I signed the authorization, consolidating everything under my name. No triumph, just quiet focus. This wasn't about power, it was about balance, which always finds its way. A week later, we sent him a formal notice from Hollow Oak Recovery Division, offering fair options, a payment plan, a chance to sell, or default. I stayed out of it until he called. My assistant buzzed, stunned, Mr. Thompson on line 2. He says he's your father. My stomach flipped, but my voice stayed steady. Put him through. His voice was tight, desperate. Lena, these letters, what's going on? This can't be real. I inhaled. It's real, Dad. Silence, then anger. You can't do this. This is my house. I built it. You're my daughter. That word, daughter, cut deep. You said I didn't belong, I replied softly. I'm just following your example. Silence stretched. You're taking my house, he asked, his voice small. I answered with truth, not cruelty. I'm offering the same options as everyone else. Your choice. He hung up. Weeks passed before his lawyer reached out, requesting new terms. I reviewed the file twice, then approved a slightly better offer. Not because he was my father, but because that's how Hollow Oak operates, even for those who once shut us out. It started with my brother's call, his voice unheard since that Thanksgiving when he stood behind Dad, smirking as I was turned away. Now he was frantic. Lena, we didn't know about the liens, about what you're doing. From my office, I replied calmly, it's asset consolidation, Josh. Legal. Ask your lawyer. Dad already did. A pause. You're not taking the house, are you? I heard his panic, his entitlement. The house I was kicked out of? The one I paid $72,000 to clear, and still wasn't welcome. He stammered. You know how Dad is. He didn't mean it. He meant every word, I said evenly. And now I do too. Silence. Hours later, Dad called. I didn't answer. He called again the next morning, then texted, we need to talk, please. I waited 2 days before picking up. His voice was weary, defeated. Lena, what do you want? It was cold, transactional. I gazed at my office skyline, earned through grit and solitude. Respect, I said. For myself, not just from you. And to stop chasing people who never wanted me to catch up. He exhaled. So, you're taking the house? I already have, I said. But I'm not evicting you unless you force me. I set my boundary, not a weapon, but a line. I'm offering a lease, fair market rate, with a clause. No more police, no more cold shoulders. Treat me like a stranger and you'll stay one. He didn't speak for a long moment. When he did, it wasn't anger, it was worse. Your grandfather left you that money, didn't he? I nodded, though he couldn't see. He did, because he saw what you didn't. He cleared his throat. You've built something, haven't you? I have. And this is in spite. I inhaled. No, it's because I spent too long begging for a seat at your table. Now I own the table and I decide who sits. The next week, papers were signed. Ownership was mine. The lease was mailed, signed, and returned without changes. They stayed quiet, respectful. But the house wasn't theirs anymore, it was mine. Walking through those rooms one evening, checking a minor repair, I didn't feel like a guest. I felt like I'd come home on my terms because I'd built the door myself. This time, the drive was different. No racing pulse, no trembling hands, no desperate hope. I was heading home, not the cold house of my childhood, where love came with conditions, but the one I created with my hands, heart, and unyielding will. A home that didn't need anyone's permission to feel safe. I bought it 3 months after the legal battles, signatures, and my father's final call, when he began to understand my silence as survival. He still lived in the old house, paying rent on time, keeping quiet. I'd walked away not in anger, but in peace, because I had everything I needed. My new home sat on a serene hillside, warm with light, hardwood floors I chose, a spacious kitchen for meals I loved, and a long table, not for proving myself, but for gathering those who saw me, loved me, chose me. People who didn't judge me by old grudges or outdated roles. That first Thanksgiving, I set the table with gold trim plates and linen napkins. My best friend, Nora, brought turkey. My co-founder, Sam, brought wine. My assistant, who I insisted join as family, arrived with her mother, who hugged me like her own. Even my old neighbor, Mrs. Langley, brought her famous sweet potato casserole. There were toasts, laughter, full plates, and fuller hearts. No one made me feel I had to earn my place. No one questioned my presence. No one called the police. As we sat, I glanced at the deed framed on the wall. My name, my signature, no one else's. It struck me not just what I'd reclaimed, but what I'd built. Home isn't where you're told you belong. It's where you create belonging. And this was mine.